I believe that feeling depressed is real. I don't believe depression as a clinical disease is real. I think PTSD is very real. Unfortunately, I have some friends who suffer from that. I know that feeling depressed is real. I believe that the number one power you have against these things are trying to take control of your own mind and affecting your own life. I believe that it's not healthy to hand over all your power and believe that depression is an outside disease that you can't affect. I know that when I've had difficult periods in my life, and also many of my friends, like I've said, suffer from PTSD and been through terrible things. I've lived a very difficult life, and I know people who have, that the things that made them feel better is when they woke up and said, you know what, I'm not gonna allow this to damage me anymore. I'm gonna take responsibility. I'm gonna get up and I'm gonna fight this as hard as I can.
I'm sitting there and saying to men, look, life as a man is shit. It's always been shit. It's never been good. When men wake up and say, I'm depressed and life is hard and I'm sad and I'm struggling right now, I say, okay, throughout history, men have always struggled. Happiness is for children and women. Name a time in history it was better to be a man. Was it better to be a man in World War II? Was it better to be a man on the Titanic? Was it better to be a man in the Napoleonic Wars? Was it better to be a man when you were sitting in Vienna and the Mongol horde arrived, ready to decapitate any male and enslave all the females? When's it ever been good to be a man? Building the pyramids, was that fun? It's always sucked. The only time being a man ever is good is if you become an exceptional man, which is even something feminists admit, because feminists sit and complain about men and say, well, men have this, men have that, but they're talking about 2% of men.
Fascinating.
They don't talk about all men. They say men have the best jobs. 2% of men have the best jobs. Most men carry trash. So you're talking crap. So everyone accepts that the best possible human experience that exists is the top 2% of men. Anything below that sucks as a man. You're better off being a chick. So what I say to men is, look, life's hard, it's always gonna be hard, it's always gonna suck, it always has. The only way to get out is to become excellent and perform at a level where your echelon is so high that you get to live this brand new experience. You need to become strong and smart and interesting and charismatic. You need to become rich, powerful, well-known, connected. You need to do it. I think that as a man, your happiness comes from feeling respected over feeling loved. And the reason perhaps you're happy now is because you have more respect for yourself because of the decisions you're making. And you have self-respect.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of men, even if they have self-respect, if nobody else respects them, they're struggling. I think male depression can be fixed with respect.
I want to tap into depression. What's your thoughts on that?
I think that it's massively overdiagnosed. I say depression isn't real because I speak in absolutes. I think the idea of feeling depressed is real. I don't feel like it's a clinical disease that you catch from the sky and it can't be fixed. I feel like depression is feedback, pain is feedback, and your mind and body is telling you something must change. And if you make those changes, you will feel happier. I don't buy into the idea that it is a disease. I think it's situational, and you must change your situation and your actions and your decisions to feel better. And that's why I say it's not real. It's not a disease. I do not believe in depression. That's just who I am as a person. I don't believe in it. I do not believe in things that take power away from me. So, and people sit there and they try very hard to convince me it's real, which is actually quite interesting because it's always usually depressed people who sit there and try very hard to defend this idea. If you're so scared, if depression's so terrible, why are you sticking up for it? Why are you fighting so hard to convince me it's such a powerful force? Why shouldn't you be doing the opposite? Shouldn't you be listening to me? Whose team are you on? Like, do you want to be depressed? Like, it's insanity. These people are so desperate to push this idea. Said this many times before. I don't believe in things that take away power from me. I don't care if depression is real. I don't care if I'm wrong. I don't believe in something that takes away power from me because I can't become depressed if I don't believe in depression. And that allows me to shield my mind from the idea of being a depressed person. I can feel depressed temporarily, but I can never become a depressed person because it doesn't exist. You can lock me in a Romanian jail cell for 93 days with cockroaches. I will not be depressed. I will feel a little bit sad, of course, but I will never become a depressed person because I don't believe in it. And when I say this, depressed people are like, no, depression's real, it's ruined my life, it's taken everything from me, depression's real, depression's real. I said, you sound like it's promotional team. You sound like it's
their
PR
God.
team.
It's their God. They're worshiping it.
You're worshiping it because it gives you a cure-all excuse for your monumental failures, as opposed to waking up and going, you know what, maybe I'm a fuck up. Nothing to do with depression. Maybe I've just been fucking up. Maybe depression isn't real and I've just been fucking up and I should fix a few of these things.
What have I been reaping?
Absolutely. And you'd be amazed how depression will lose power over your life and lose its ability to destroy your life if you stop giving it so much respect and just wake up and say, let me fix X, Y, and Z. What can I control? let's pretend I'm completely wrong, right? We can look at situational depression like you just described. We can talk about brain imbalance and chemical imbalance. We can talk about clinical depression that you get and it's chronic and it's nothing we can do about it, whatever. Let's pretend all these things are completely true. The best option, the best thing to do is still to get up, be an adult, control your emotions, be stoic, and do the things you're supposed to do day after day. Laying in bed and doing nothing is never going to be the best option. The best option is still to go to the gym, to work hard, to run your business, to be successful. So it doesn't matter. We're talking about the different positions on the chessboard. But if the rules of the game remain the same, regardless of the position you're still trying to win, you still have to do the same things. So does it even matter at this point? If you come along and say he's depressed because of X and he's depressed because of Y and he's depressed because of Z, and the answer to all of them is still the same thing, then I don't give a fuck why you're depressed. All I know, what I will say as a matter of fact, is this world is hyper competitive, especially as a man. Most men are walking through life and they don't realize that it's constant competition. I was driving here. Even as I was driving here, I was looking out the window. I was looking at all these people just walking around. One of them had a fucking croissant. One of them was dressed like a dickhead because it's London. He thinks he fucking looks cool. Looks like a fucking moron.
We've all seen them.
Yep, moron. Some of the dude just talking shit on the phone. Some of the guy with headphones in, waiting to be fucking murdered, wouldn't even hear it coming. And all these NPCs, I'm just looking at them going, do they realize they're in endless, constant competition? Every single pound they want, someone else wants. Every single girl they want, someone else wants. There are people like me out here. I will destroy, you could get all 30 of them in a room and I will sit by myself and absolutely annihilate them in any single metric. And they're just sitting there just fucking floundering and wandering through life, unaware of how competitive the world is.
Well, and whinging how unfair it is.
And whinging and how unfair it is. And this is my point. If the world is truly that competitive, you do not have time to be depressed because it's a non-competitive mind state. You could be depressed for X, Y, Z, whatever. I'm not depressed. And I want the money you want, and I want the girl you want, and I want the status you want, and the car you want, and the house you want. And I'm going to get it, and you're fucking not. This is the thing about society and MSM and all this garbage and the Matrix. They try and convince you, don't worry if you're being a loser because people feel sorry for you and you'll get attention for it and you'll be okay in the end. And it's all this temporary fixes of dopamine by saying, I'm sad. Don't worry, bro, you'll be okay. But it's bullshit. They don't care long term. The world doesn't care. Nobody really cares. Chicks don't care. Business doesn't care. You are going to fail. It's kind of interesting because everyone pretends they give a fuck, but nobody does. Especially women. And I know I get attacked for women, but women truly don't give a fuck. If you ask a woman the kind of man she wants, she will never say depressed or sad, ever. She wants a man who is ultra capable, ultra competent. I've literally had women say to me, you know what, I love being around you? I'm like, what? I don't have to think. I'm like, what do you mean? Because I just turn up and like, we just walk in the hotel and everyone, staff do anything we want and the jet's just on the runway and we just land and I'm in this beautiful place and I don't even know where I am and I get to just turn my brain off and it's great. Like, they want someone who is fun and spontaneous and charismatic and successful. They don't have time for sad dudes. They don't care. So the world doesn't care. The world has never given a shit about sad men. So if you're going to sit there and self-diagnose yourself as a sad man, you're going to have a shit life and nobody's ever going to give a fuck and you're going to perpetually lose forever. And that is your decision. I am so scared of being that person. The idea of that terrifies me to the point where I don't even want to accept that as a reality that can possibly exist. I don't give a shit what happens to me in my life. I don't care how bad it is. I don't care if the worst, most heinous things I can possibly imagine happen to me. I know that my sadness, my depression will be temporary because I will never stay a loser. It's against my creed. It's not in my DNA.
I disagree that if you feel depressed, I disagree that you cannot affect it and change your life and take control and fix yourself and feel happier. I disagree with that.
Do you think?
I refuse to accept that there are people out there who cannot become happy, contented individuals. I refuse to accept we live in a world where God has created people who, no matter how hard they work and how good their life becomes, can't be happy. I don't accept that. I accept that the universe is a very given place and that God loves all of us. And if you try your best and you work hard, you can become a better person. When I say depression isn't real, I'm saying that because I don't believe in things that can take away power. If I believed in depression, I would have been depressed in jail. But I can't be depressed if I don't believe in it. If you don't believe in ghosts, how can you be haunted? You have two people in a haunted house. One believes in ghosts, one doesn't. There's a knock in the night. One wakes up, calls an exorcist, is terrified, looks for a ghost. The other guy doesn't believe in ghosts. Knock in the night, goes back to sleep. It's the belief in the ghost that gives the power. If I don't believe in depression, I believe in feeling depressed. Sure, we're humans, we have emotions. Sometimes we feel depressed, sometimes we feel happy. I don't believe in the idea of becoming a depressed person who has depression. I don't believe in that. I don't think that's possible for me. So if I don't believe in it, how can it happen? I don't believe in depression. So why would I not adopt the mindset that makes me the most capable predator I can possibly be? Why not adopt the mindset that makes me as competent and as fearsome as possible? If you have to install software in your own mind, why would I not install software that makes me capable of not only driving a Bugatti and flying on private jets, but sitting in a Romanian dungeon covered in cockroaches? I need to be able to do all of it. So why would I believe in something that made me incapable? I don't believe in depression because I think that even the belief in and of itself, when you feel depressed, you'll start to consider, maybe I have depression. When you go see a psychiatrist who tells you you have depression and they want you on pills. It's the belief that goes down the spiral. If I feel sad, I go, I'm depressed today, I'll be fine tomorrow. I do not believe it's a disease that you catch from the sky and you cannot affect. I believe that no matter what happens, I believe you have control of your own mind and you can fight against it. I believe if you change your circumstances in your life, you may feel different. I'll give you a quick example. I had a guy who emailed me saying he was clinically depressed and he was going to kill himself. I obviously am not a psychiatrist, I'm not a doctor. I told him, because I replied to my emails. I said, have you been to a psychiatrist? He said, yes, I'm clinically depressed. I've been on these pills, this amount of time. I'm on antidepressants, it doesn't work. I said, I don't know what to say to you besides this. And he said he lost his girlfriend, that's why I became clinically depressed. I said, listen, go to the gym, get a six-pack first. Once you've got a six-pack, email me again. If you still feel like killing yourself, I don't know what else to say. I'd say, strong body is a strong mind, go train. He went, he started sending me progress pictures, emailing me him getting in better shape, and eventually got a six-pack. He's now a professional bodybuilder. And he said, I can't believe I was considering that. I feel so much better, etc. The doctor was telling him he was clinically depressed and couldn't cure it. He started taking control of his own life, and now he felt better. When I said depression wasn't real, the number of people who would attack me defending depression, this is what I didn't understand. Right? You say depression isn't real, but depression's ruined my life, and it's super real, and it's ruined my life, and I lost my marriage. I'm like, if I told you it wasn't real, you should be coming to me saying, tell me how it's not real. Please help me with my depression. Why are you trying to convince me that it's real? Why are you sticking up for it?
And why are you defending depression?
And why would I adopt the thinking of someone who's sad? Why would I? You're going to convince me to take your worldview. You just told me your wife left you, you're fat, and you want to kill yourself. And you want me to sit here and go, with my perfect life, and go, you know what? I want to think like this guy. You're out of your mind. I don't believe in it. And because I don't believe in it, it's made me the kind of person who can't become depressed. And the reason they don't like me attacking that is because depression is a fantastic way to subdue a population, right? If everybody's depressed, it's hard to have a revolution. You're depressed. Oh, they've locked us all in our houses. I don't want to go outside anyway. I'm sad, right? So depression's a fantastic tool of population control. They have no problem with you being depressed. They have a problem with you being the opposite, principled and energetic. No, they don't want principled, energetic people. That's a problem. A bunch of depressed people, easy. If you had to invade a country, would you rather the opposing army be principled and energetic or depressed?
I'll tell you, I would not want to be invaded by a cheerful army.
Absolutely.
That's scary.
They're having too much fun, right? You want them all to be depressed. So
a morose army is easier to defeat. I agree.
Absolutely. So depression is a defended idea. You're not allowed to even talk about it. You're not allowed to help people get out of it, right? They like the idea of a depressed population. And this is what I say to people. Now, I'm not stupid. I understand like PTSD is real. I understand mental health is real. I'm not saying that, but I say if you're an 18-year-old boy or 18-year-old man and your life is pretty much okay, bacteria didn't steal your eyesight, which could have happened. You never had a car crash and lost both of your legs, which could have happened. You're actually very fortunate. And you wake up and you say, I'm depressed. I think you're an idiot. I don't think you're depressed. I think you've been psyoped. I think you feel a little bit of depression and you can fix that by changing your life. I think if you became rich and strong and smart and successful and you worked hard and you dedicated yourself and you were motivated and you tried your very, very best to become excellent, you probably wouldn't feel depressed anymore, which means it's not a disease, is it? So why would you? Well, the only reason you're even saying you have depression is because you believe in it.
So you're arguing for cause and effect. You're saying if you live a certain way, you're going to feel a certain way.
Absolutely. And I also would argue that I think we've evolutionarily, even though I do believe in God, I think that we've designed ourselves and the human has grown into a way where if you feel depressed or sad, I think that's a fantastic trigger or a warning signal to do something. If you were to say to me, Andrew, you have to complete this monumental task. You have to conquer the world. I would say, okay, but I need a emotional motivation to do that. I need to be unhappy having not completed the task. You know, I need to be uncomfortable, right? If you're uncomfortable being out of shape, you'll get in shape. If you're happy being out of shape, then you're just going to stay out of shape, right? So if you feel a degree of uncomfortableness inside of your mind, I think it's just your mind telling you that something about your life needs to change.
Yes.
You need to get up and change something. Guys would say to me, I'm depressed because I'm fat and I have no girlfriend. And I'd say, no, you have no girlfriend and you're fat, and that's why you're depressed. If you go change those two things, you'd probably be surprised that your disease goes away.
And I've analyzed this about myself heavily because I believe that feedback is how you get good at anything. Practice is, people think practice makes perfect. That's a lie. Feedback makes perfect. And I was actually discussing this with somebody who was talking about my podcast. He says, oh, your podcasts are very good. And how do you talk so well? And I said, well, he goes, you must be practicing. I was like, I don't practice because I'm 37, you're 42. You've been practicing longer than me. So how come I can speak better than you can? Because I watch myself back and I analyze, I learn new words. Feedback is how you get good at something. So I try to analyze my own state of mind all the time. And I try and work out, why did I feel like an Islamic society was closer to God than a Christian society? Is it because of what's in the book? Or is it because of the society I'm in? Is it because of the society? Maybe. And I'm just being perfectly brutally honest here. Maybe when I look at religion, I say, well, if a religion, what's the primary goal of a religion? Is it to save souls? Yes. But also, wouldn't you argue the primary goal of religion is to preserve a society? To a degree? If Islam can preserve Islamic societies, if women are women, if men are men, if even in war zones, even you can look at the worst countries on the planet today, they're Islamic countries, if they're still all praying, they're still all with their wives, they're still all feeding. God is the only thing they've got. They don't have anything else. They're not afraid to die for what they believe in. God is all they've got left. You know what's interesting? Someone said to me, they said, imagine when you look at movies and you see a post-apocalyptic Christian country, like, you know, something's happened. You see riots, you see looting, you see all these things, right? He goes, there's a bunch of Islamic countries right now that are already post-apocalyptic. You don't see any of them because they believe in God. Maybe it's that. Maybe it's just I felt it hold society together. And I'm not going to sit here and argue that I'm right. I'm not going to argue against Christianity at all. I respect Christianity. I was raised Christian. I have absolute respect for Christians. My brother's a Christian. I'm not going to sit and say that I'm right and anyone else is wrong. I'm just saying perhaps it's as simple as if I send my children to school in Dubai, 99% of the problems we've talked about, I don't have to worry about anymore. We're at the point now where you almost just have to avoid broke people. And I'm not saying that in a horrible way. I'm saying you can't get on a train because there's someone on that train who can't pay their bills and is on the edge. That's just the reality of it. You can see it. Someone bumps into them and they just pull a blade and start stabbing people. You can't walk around in crowds. You can't go where there's huge gatherings because there ends up being a murder or a stabbing or a riot. It's getting to the point where you become more elitist because you're saying, well, I just need to avoid all of the people who don't have a lot of money and I can avoid 99.9% of the world's problems besides the government because then they come for you. Yeah. But it's getting that way. And I don't feel like, you'll know better than me, that the world used to be that way. The common man would be a good person and everything was fine and they loved their family and they had a degree of respect. But in certain towns in England, especially now, if you try and go anywhere and people aren't affluent, they've lost all sense of morality. They just think, oh, okay, well, it just becomes a free-for-all. And it's dangerous. It's getting more and more dangerous to be around or just do a common thing or a normal thing. Public transport, malls, anything. It's getting crazy out there. But I do believe that humans are intrinsically good. And I think that as we're divided further and further down the scale, which is what's happening, we just end up finding an enemy of some kind. I believe that when you remove the homogeny of society, whether it be race, religion, anything, when you have nothing at all to unify or bind people anymore, you add on the pressure of people not being able to pay their bills, you add on the pressure of people slowly realizing how unfair this world is and how unfair all the systems we're supposed to believe in are. I think there's just a lot of pressure on people to just, I don't think a lot of people can take pressure. You can talk from jail. We can talk about our jail. There's a lot of people who wake up and they say, let's take it this way. If you're an immigrant, let's say, and I don't know this, I'm just guessing, because I try and put myself in other people's positions, right? I try and pretend I'm them. If I was an immigrant and I grew up in a strictly Islamic country in a war zone, I'm going to be battle hardened because I've seen terrible things happen. And I'm going to have this view of the West as this utopia of beautiful women and money and all this other garbage, right? And I'm going to leave my land, I'm going to go to England, and I'm going to realize that, one, I don't have really very much money. Other people may have some money, but I don't. 2, nobody really wants to give me a job because I don't have the work ethic they expect of me. 3, the women don't look at me as anything. So all these women who I have a bad view of, I view them as promiscuous because that's what I've seen in the music videos. Yeah. And I go up to them and I'm like, hey, and they're like, go away from me. That offends me. What do you mean go away? Why are you telling me to go away? Because I have this promiscuous view in my mind. You put me with 10 other guys who have no job and we stand around on the corner all day. Like, how is this going to end anything other than crime? How is this going to end any other way? Because you get to a point, especially when you tell them the punishment for what happens to them is probably better than how they lived at home. You're going to say, well, get rich or die trying. And that's inside of every single man anyway. So when you add in the war zone and these other societal levels and these other psychological levels, they just don't care anymore. And how can you police that? How can you stop that? It's scary because the police come afterwards. When I got out of jail, I was analyzing because I'm a very lucky person. God has blessed me with the experience of the Romanian judicial system. So I'm trying to understand other judicial systems around the world. And I was like, well, where is fair? And you start to like go down the rabbit hole a bit. And you see that there's a lot of countries that have completely different ethoses when it comes to justice. So the American idea and the British idea, the Western idea of justice is innocent until proven guilty. That's the basic idea of justice. In countries like Romania, it's more, everyone goes to jail for a while. Everybody. If you're even remotely suspected of anything, everybody goes to jail for a while. And then we'll let you out. And then in the end, unless you've really done something, you're probably going to go home. So theirs is more scattergun. It's more, you looked in a car window? Well, you didn't break in, but you're looking in. And there was a car break-in yesterday. Tough.
It might be you.
Yeah, that's how they work. Yeah. Now, that obviously comes with detriment because you end up in jail with a bunch of people who perhaps don't belong in jail. But then I look at the society here. We're in the poorest country in Europe. I walk around with $1 million watch. I had a $5 million Bugatti. I'd park it on the street. Women walk home alone at night. It's so ridiculously safe because everyone fears the law. So perhaps it's detrimental, yes. And when you're in the cell, you're like, why am I here? But if you're not emotional about the fact you got caught up in it and you look around, you're like, well, society does function. People always talk about Japan and say, Japan's so safe, Japan's so great, Japan's amazing. Yeah, because there's a 99% conviction rate.
Yeah.
You telling me that innocent people aren't going to jail with a 99% conviction rate?
100%.
What's the even point of the court? The court doesn't exist. You turn up, I did that, jail. Yeah, jail. Same what happened to me. I went there and I said, TikTok, how can you human traffic someone on TikTok? TikTok doesn't even make money. Yeah, jail. They don't care. So you either fear the law or you have to fear the criminals. In the worst countries on earth, and perhaps we could say this is America currently, you have to fear both. Because the law will come for you if you're too big and you're telling too much truth. And the criminals will come after you if you're too rich. So you're living there with two enemies.
Right.
You know, that's the worst position to be in. At least in a country like Japan, you know, as long as I don't upset the law, I'll probably be okay.
Yeah, right.
And this is the ultimate position of the slave mind. Because there are people who have a visceral reaction of anger towards me or towards you or towards anyone you can name. And they feel an emotion, right? And emotion's a real thing. Anger is a real thing. They'll feel a visceral emotion for a person they've never met based on an edited news segment from a propaganda organization. They're going to sit there and go, well, this propagandist has told me this, and now I feel rage towards this person I've never met. They haven't investigated anything. They haven't dived down the rabbit hole. They don't care. They just instantly comply and believe. If they can make you feel emotions with a short edited clip, well, then you are the enemy of freedom. You are the exact type of people they want, so they can play clips on the news, you get angry, and do whatever they tell you to do. You're the worst person in the world. And another thing that people just lack so much brain, if they were to come to me and say, Michael's got a new case, he's back on the streets, crime boss, they put it all over the news and tell you your past and you're a crime boss, and they say, look, here's an indictment. I'm gonna say, so wait, the police wrote this and the media wrote that. So I don't care about any of it. It's all a lie. It's all a scam because it's a one-sided story. People are going to be full-grown adults and not understand that one-sided stories always end one way. You can't ask the media or the police anything about anybody. And then the scary thing about all of this is what we were talking about earlier. If you actually do a crime, like a bad, heinous thing, you rob a grandma, they seem to let you off. They don't seem to punish you like they used to.
No.
And that's a really big rabbit hole to go down as to why they're doing that and why they're trying to make society so unsafe. Perhaps it's because the only thing the human mind will accept a reduction in freedom for is safety. The only thing that will make you say, okay, take my freedom, but make me safe. So the worse things get, the more dangerous it becomes to leave your house. You might end up agreeing to being locked in your house. And okay, you deliver my food, you deliver my bugs, and I'll stay home because it's dangerous out there. That's the only thing we'll give up freedom for is safety.
You're right.
So that's why it's getting more and more crazy by the day. El Salvador, the president of El Salvador, has proved you can fix any mess. He cleaned it all up. Are there some innocent people in jail, like we were talking earlier about Romania, Japan, etc.? Probably. But he's fixed it. I don't know if you've ever watched his speeches?
No.
Oh, El Salvador went from the most dangerous country in the Western Hemisphere to the safest.
And what length of time?
A year and a half. He just turned up, built a mega prison, said if you have a tattoo, or you're related to a gangster, or you're in a house with a gangster, you're all going to jail. And he just locked up everyone, head to toe, everybody. And now it's the safest country. And he's saying now they're going through the judicial process, they're going to do some jail, and some people who are innocent are going to eventually get out. And everyone tells me that I violated human rights. That's fine. What about the human rights of the people who are getting murdered on the streets? Right. We had the highest homicide rate in the world. Everyone was dying. Everyone talks about human rights, and the BBC and everyone wants to come along and ask me about human rights. I fix human rights because people can walk around with their children now. So he took drastic measures to get something done. I'm not saying America should do that, but I'm saying I'm sure with the monumental resource they have and the amount of time they spend going after Bitcoin millionaires like Roger Ver, or in trying to convince the Romanian embassy to put me in jail for talking online, or keeping an eye on every single person who's a Trump supporter, perhaps they could, I don't know, stop grandmas getting murdered if they want to. Yeah. They've been so determined to detriment the contribution of masculinity to society, because maybe I'm paranoid, maybe I'm crazy, but I think true masculinity, I see danger everywhere. If I walk from my car to the restaurant, my heart beats a little bit. Like if I get out of my car,
I'm the same way. I could totally relate to that.
I've got guards with guns. I've got security with me. I can't carry a weapon. I'm on bail, but I have 3 men with guns, and I still get out of the car, and I'm
the same way.
That's how I am. If you have that healthy degree of fear and protectivism inside of a society, inside of the societal mechanism for making laws, you're going to be a lot more careful about opening a border, a lot more careful about letting someone off and not giving them a cheap bail when they've done X amount of violent crime. You're going to be the kind of person who's like, no, safety first, we're going to protect this. But when you add in all this subjectivism and this garbage and this feminism and this racial, oh, it's not his fault, or it's not her fault, or it's not this, they didn't do it, it's this, it's that, human rights, bunch of garbage, you're removing the masculine capability to just protect what it cares about. I think one of the largest smear campaigns against me is I get called hateful all the time. The BBC who hate me. The BBC hate me. They're the propaganda arm of the British government, and the British members of parliament stand around in parliament. It's the only time I watch those clowns. And they sit around talking about me. Andrew Tate's the worst thing that ever happened to this country. Not the stabbing, not the drugs, not the open borders. No, Andrew Tate said go to the gym. He's worth a 2-hour conversation. Only time I've watched them clowns in a long time. So the BBC is after me, right? And they say, Andrew, there's hateful ideologies. There's no such thing as a hateful ideology if you love something. You're not hateful if you say, I love America and I don't want those people to come here. You hate immigrants. No, I love America. There's no light without dark. There's no equal and opposite forces. If you love anything on the planet, you'll be called hateful against something else. The only people who aren't hateful are people who don't love anything and don't stand up for anything. The people who are just empty vessels waiting for the slave mine programming to convince them to be mad at us. If you love anything, you're a hateful person against something else. They'll call you hateful because they'll weaponize it and they'll try and take away the love aspect. I don't hate anybody or anything. I think it was with Piers when I said that my girlfriend doesn't work. It's like, why don't you want her to work? I said she can work if she wants, but she doesn't have to. Why? Because I'm rich. You're a misogynist. How does it make me a misogynist? I'm a misogynist. She's in Chanel and get a facial. I love her and I take care of her. But that's it. No, I hate women now. This is how they spin that. There's a large proportion of the population who would try and say you're a bad person.
Yeah, why?
And they do this because they're pitting us against each other. That's why they're trying to attack masculinity to the point where they will say, if you're remotely masculine, you are harming and hurting women, which of course is false. But they try and keep the genders divided. That's what they want to do, because genders being united, when you're two different parts of a perfect whole, that's the basis of society in the first place. We can talk about government, we can talk about all these things, but it starts with a man loving a woman, having a child. And then they decide to buy a house. If they can buy a house, as opposed to what's currently happening because they can't afford any of them, if they can buy a house, they're now interested in the schools, they're interested in the roads, they're interested in the town, they'll go to the local county fair. The town can be extrapolated out to the state, to the city, to the government, etc. It starts with that. They've broken us at the nucleus of the cell. Men and women no longer get along because we have completely different ideas. And you can blame either gender, but truthfully it's a race to the bottom for both genders, I think. Gender dynamics are now so fundamentally broken in Western societies that how can you build a society on the top of it? How can you build a society on the top of women who don't want to listen to their man ever? Men who don't want to marry a woman because she's either going to financially wreck him or he's not going to feel like the king of his own household, which is what a man wants. Why would you marry a woman who says, I'm not going to listen to you? Well, then why am I marrying you? What's the point in any of this now? You go down the rabbit hole of hedonistic insanity, this hedonistic sex and garbage. This is why we're in the position we're in the West, right? Because you can also tie that in with the broken gender dynamic, which you have. You tie that into the female empowerment, telling them that they're better than men at everything. You also tie that into everything that happens to them is a man's fault somehow because they're permanent victims. And this is where you have all these fake rape charges and fake claims. How can this possibly be fixed when you have millions and millions of people having hedonistic empty sex on drugs and alcohol? Right. Telling the woman if they regret it at any point further on in their life, it's the man's fault. At the same time, she's better than the men in every single possible way. And these people are psyoped by Sex and the City and the internet and other garbage. Of course, they're going to have millions and millions of fake rape claims and fake kidnapping, all this garbage, all these crazy things. I said this to the mother of my child. I said, listen, I love my daughter with all my heart. If somebody hurts her, I'll go to jail. I don't care. I'll go to jail.
Of course.
But if my daughter comes to me and says, I was raped, what happened? I went out with a guy and I got drunk and I was drunk with him and I went to his house and we kept drinking and then I went in his bed drinking and I took my clothes off and then I had sex with him, but now I think because he ain't texting me, I don't want to. I'm like, I can't in good conscience kill this man. What do you want me to do now? And this subjective garbage has come by the basic breakdown of even gender dynamics now. So we have masculinity under attack on every single level. I said this to Tristan, some guy, an old friend of mine. Me and him were joking because since I got this human trafficking charge, I get all these beautiful women around the world saying, you can human traffic me. Like they send me messages. And he's like, oh, that must be fun. I was like, I don't meet anybody. I don't trust any of it. Because there's no longer even consent in the Western world for a man. If she gives you consent and can retract, then you never had it. Right. So you can't even have relations now if you're famous, really.
It's gotten to that point.
It's gone to that point where she can go, yeah, we're in love, we're together, and you can be together for 3 whole months and enjoy each other's company for 3 months and be together every single night. And then 2 years later, she can change her mind and retract all the consent. And okay, will you be found guilty or not? Well, that depends on the evidence in your phone and her phone. Yeah. But you're still going to need a lawyer. You're still going to go to court. You're still going to get arrested. You're going to be punished by the process. So you can't even have consent in the West in any regard anymore. So how can you even have familiar relationships when you can't even have consent? And that makes men of certain status extremely scared. I also think it's so interesting because I have sons and daughters and they're being raised in such different ways. But my son is having a hard life because life's hard, right? Right. I walk past him, he's 3, I push him over. He gets up. It's like, that's life, son. One day you're gonna go to jail. Get up. You know? But my daughters are princesses. Right. Like my daughter's 3 and she's saying, I only want to fly private and all this garbage, right? She's at 3. She's a nightmare. But I'm doing this on purpose because when she gets to a certain age, I'm gonna say, look, the gravy train ends the second you get a man. So you've lived a very nice life. You have all the things you want and you have your bags and your cars and your private jets and you're very, very rich. But the second you get a boyfriend, the gravy train ends. If he can't pay for what you're used to, that's your decision. And you can't go back. You have to make a good call now because I'll take care of you until another man comes. Then it's his job. You better make sure he has my kind of budgets because you're used to a certain lifestyle. This is my plan.
I have the same thing, and she's standing right over there.
That's the plan.
Same thing.
Yeah, because the son is a completely different. You know, they're from different mothers, and it's kind of unfair because the mother of my son's like, if I had a girl, my life would be so much easier because they're on jets and stuff, and you're like, I don't want him on a jet. No, I don't want him on a jet. No, I don't want him on a jet. I want him to stand in line. Right. And it's amazing how different the upbringings between the two can be, and how my upbringing was. I often try and talk about how my dad raised me, and in the modern world, people will say, oh, that's crazy, that's abusive, he was nuts. I really believe I had the best dad on the planet. I don't regret a single time I had my ass whooped. I don't regret it ever. I probably deserved it. If I think back, I deserved it. And it's crazy to me that we built the whole world with discipline in children. We built the whole world with it. The pyramids were built when kids couldn't talk back to parents. The Napoleonic Wars, Mozart, the cathedrals, every single thing you see that was created less than 30 years ago, more than 30 years ago, was created with discipline in children. And now we're coming along saying, oh, you can't discipline a child. Oh, no, you can't tell them to be quiet and sit down. Right. My dad used to say this all the time. He had a saying. He said, I don't negotiate with children. He'd come in and he'd change the channel. I'd say, oh, Dad, I was watching that. I don't negotiate with children. We're not having a conversation. There's no negotiation. Be quiet or face the repercussion. I was like, yes, sir. Okay, then I guess I'm watching this. You know, so the world's gone nuts. And I was saying this the other day. I saw something on TV about mental illness because I think a lot of the mental illness is overprescribed. And I'm not talking about PTSD. And even when I got out of jail, I had nightmares. Romanian jail is a unique experience. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the overprescribed mental illnesses because every kid in the world is a mental illness now, right? And they're talking about OCD and ADHD, etc. And there was this kid who was walking down the stairs and he had OCD. And if he didn't walk down the stairs in a particular pattern, he'd like skip one stair, turn around, go up a stair, then do a hop and then do a jump, some weird stair thing. And his two parents standing there going, if he doesn't go down the stairs in a particular way and we put him in the car, he has a mental breakdown, he starts screaming, we have to turn the car around and let him go down the stairs and he has OCD. And the doctor's like, yeah, he has OCD and he's just medicine. I'm sitting there and I'm saying, I've never seen an African kid walking for water 10 miles, turn around and do it again because they missed a step. Ever. This is not a disease. This is a brat with idiot parents who are enabling this kid. If that was my kid, I would drag his ass to the car and tell him to shut up. Right. And I'd fix it in a day. And we're sitting here with doctors, TV shows, pills. The kid, the world's lost its fucking mind.
Absolutely.
It's the same with ADHD. They say, oh, my kid can't concentrate. Well, I wonder why. Your child has video games, iPads. It's enjoying this very fun life. It goes to school and has to sit down with a boring book of math and doesn't want to. I was in Miami. Last time I was in America was 3 or 4 years ago. I was in Miami. I was with a friend of mine from Saudi Arabia, and we were in the club. And I was saying, we were talking about how there's no real clubs in Saudi Arabia. There's clubs in Miami, da-da-da-da-da. And he looked at me and he goes, yeah, there's no clubs in Saudi Arabia, but there's wives. There's no wives here. And I just looked around and I was like, yeah, there's girls. There's no wives. You know, it's like, that's American society now.
Right.
That's the Western society, and it's going down this degradation. The thing I think a lot of people don't understand, and I have this especially because I come from a very low income background and I still know a lot of the people I grew up with. And when they go, if I had your kind of money, I'd do this, or if I had your kind of money, I'd do that. Hedonism is a black hole that never ends. You can only get so drunk so many times until you want to take a drug, and you do that so many times until you want to do both at the same time or whatever. You end up on a pedo island, whatever it is. Hedonism is a spiral to nowhere.
Right.
True happiness in life is actually doing, I believe, and this is where we can talk about masculinity, I feel happiest when I do the things I'm supposed to do because I'm supposed to do them. Just as you said, putting gas in the car. Putting gas in my woman's car will make me feel happier than doing something insane or garbage. Maybe I've become boring in my old age. I think I'm not quite as old as you, but I'm getting there. But now...
You're half my age.
But like,
don't rub it in, Andrew.
If I can clear all my emails,
right,
I've had a good day. Like, maybe it's getting that way. I know when you're younger, you're a bit more reckless and these kind of things, but a lot of young people, a lot of men say to me, especially, like, what's fun? And I'm saying doing what you're supposed to do and fulfilling your duty and being proud of yourself is fun. That's the only fun you need. You don't need the fun of trying to chase all this garbage and this hedonism and this black hole. That doesn't lead anywhere.
Did you do that for a while?
For a while, yeah, certainly.
So did I.
You have to.
Yeah.
Until you get to a point where you realize, okay, this is never going to end. Am I going to continue to go down this path, or am I going to turn around and just skip it all?
Right.
Because it only ends badly. And I think that's also one of the problems with Western society, where the youth are obsessed with fun. If you look at other societies, the youth are not so obsessed with what's fun today. What's fun now? I need fun now. I'm bored. I want fun. You know, they're overstimulated, whatever it is. They're also selfish. They're also self-obsessed with how they feel. This teaching a whole society and teaching a large contingent of the youth that how they feel plays paramount over the world. If you feel sad, that's all that matters. Not, well, I feel sad, but it doesn't matter because I'm doing the right thing. I feel depressed or I feel stressed, but it doesn't matter because I'm dedicating myself. No. What matters is how you feel right now, which means they only want to be happy all the time. And if you're going to only chase happiness and you don't have any particular skills, you're going to end up just chasing hedonism, and this is where you end up. And it's insanity. I think one of the largest tenets of masculinity for the largest period of human time is ignoring how you feel and doing what you're supposed to do because you're supposed to do it. We feel things, but jobs must be done, whether we are happy or sad. And this is also disappearing from the world. I'm stressed probably 6 days a week. I'm pissed off 6 days a week. But things need to be done.
Right.
So you just have to do them. And when you have a whole contingent of the youth obsessed with only being happy, I think this is one of the largest reasons they can psyop them so easily into doing insanity. And I guess it never used to be that way. It's actually interesting because I think humans, or maybe this is just me coping, maybe this is cope, but I think we're designed to struggle a bit. Because the closer you are to struggle, the more sensible you are. And gender roles all fix themselves in struggle, right? If you have 10 men and 10 women and they crash on a deserted island, the men do the man stuff, the women do the woman stuff. There's no discussion about gender roles because you're gonna die. Right. So the men have to go hunting, the women are gonna try and sew a blanket, whatever, because we're gonna die now. Right. So we don't have time to talk about whose job's what.
Right.
Also, if you meet somebody who's had a hard life, they seem to be pretty wise.
Yes.
It's difficult to find someone who's had a hard life who's a total idiot. When you speak to these liberals or these morons, they've had very easy, soft lives. So I think humans are supposed to struggle a bit.
Absolutely.
And in the Western world, it's the age-old adage. I know it's overused, but hard times create good men create good times, and the good times create a bunch of weaklings, and they mess everything up.
Yeah, it goes to a point, then it goes the opposite.
It goes the opposite way.
Yeah.
These people have had too easy lives for too long. And you can apply this to nearly any of the societal ills that apply to the Western world. People have had it too easy for too long, and none of them know any struggle at all. I mean, I don't know about you, to be honest with you. Like, I can almost crash my car 10 times. And I only slow down when I hit the tree. This is how I am. Like, I think that inside of the human psyche, sometimes you need to be shocked. You need to be hammered with something. That's just how it goes. Because until then, you're like, maybe I'll keep it in mind.
Yeah, well, I got away with it. You keep going.
Yeah. But when you finally learn your lesson, right? But there's a lot of these people out there who aren't being taught any lessons at all, and they're going to destroy society en masse because they have never had any kind of difficulty in their life. And what is life without difficulty in the first place? What is life? What is the point of life without difficulty? One of the things that's comforted me in all my garbage is actually, I watched one of your videos, and I was watching one of your videos a couple years ago, and I remembered it in jail. Because perhaps I'm wrong, you can correct me, but I don't think you regret any of the bad things that happened to you.
Not at all.
Because it makes you who you are.
Yeah, not at all.
So when people say, Andrew, what are you going to do if they lock you up for 10 years in Rehovot, the worst jail in Europe? I'm going to say, well, that's going to be a story. That's going to be fun. Maybe I'm crazy. I really do think that would be it'll be a story. I mean, if I don't go to, I'm going to try my very best to not go to jail and I'm innocent. Fine, of course. And maybe this is cope. I'm just talking out loud so people can understand my thought process. If you were to ask me in 5 years from now, let's say I catch 3 years bid, or I don't. 5 years from now, what did you do? I flew around in private jets. I went to Italy. I went to Dubai. I drove my fast cars. And blah, 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 blah. If I go to jail, the story's different. Maybe I'm crazy. I don't know. Maybe I'm nuts. But
the story's different, but I don't think you need to tell that one.
and I'm not wishing for it to happen.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to explain to people who don't understand why I'm not afraid. Because I know that retrospectively, I won't regret it. At the time, I may suffer. Right. I may suffer for a while afterwards. But I like to think, and I hope you can confirm this for me, that you wake up one day and you think back on it and go, I'm kind of glad that happened. Perhaps that's just a general mindset in general. Like if life gives you lemons, make lemonade, right? I mean, there's two ways you can do it. I also think we're talking about the tenets of masculinity. I think one of the core tenets of masculinity, and me personally, I blame myself for everything. Everything's my fault. It's my fault. If I go to jail, even though I'm innocent, it's still my fault. I ran my mouth the internet. It's my fault. I could have learned Romanian and defended myself better in court. I didn't. It's my fault.
I got to tell you something. I say this all the time. Okay, people ask me, Michael, what's some of your secrets? I said, some of my secrets. One of my main secrets is this: everything that goes wrong in my life, I take full responsibility for.
100%.
Because number one, if it was somebody else that did it, I should have known better. Yep. I should have seen it. I should have not let it happen. Yep. When you do, that's a man, Andrew. When you can take everything on yourself so that the next time you don't make it happen, yep. It's such a benefit, and people don't get it. Oh, you know, this guy did me wrong. He did. Why did you let him do you wrong?
100%.
My fault. I should have seen it. I'm smart enough. I should have known this. I've been through this. If you always take responsibility yourself, you're 100% better in life.
You can't learn lessons if you're blaming everybody else for what happens to you.
Exactly.
Because that's how you learn and prevent it.
Right.
And if you have that mentality, it also makes you stronger mentally, I think, to deal with the difficult things in life. Because if you go to jail and you believe, and you were set up, and a lot of people have, and you're like, oh, the system's wrong, this is wrong, this person lied, I'm a victim, poor me. I don't think that's the right position of strength. I think I think you go into jail and go, okay, that's all garbage. Yes, it's a matrix attack, X, Y, Z. However, I could have done this, this, and this, and now it's my chance to do this, this, and this, so I don't waste the next few years of my life. And I'm gonna come out and I'm gonna do my very best to be the person I know I can be. And it gives you a degree of fearlessness.
Yeah.
It gives you a degree of fearlessness. And that's probably one of the largest problems with society today, is that a lot of men have become cowards. They're afraid to talk. Even us, we talk, it gets us in trouble, right? But every time they mess with us, they damage themselves. One of the overviews, one of the contingents to holding power is that people have to trust you with it. Power, the only guarantee of power, someone said this to me once and I keep saying it, I love it. The only guarantee of power is that one day you're going to lose it. If you have power over a woman and she listens to every word you say, one day she'll stop listening. Might be the same in the mob world. You control the streets. One day you just don't control that street anymore. When you have power, people get power and they never think of this. The only guarantee of it is that one day it's going to be gone. And you have to prepare for that. And one of the quickest ways to lose power is when you can't be trusted with power. We give our governments and these institutions power because we trust them, right? The whole world is based on the trust of these systems. As soon as people stop trusting them, they can't do their job anymore. So every single time they do some two-tier policing garbage, every single time they attack somebody purely for their views, like Trump, like you, like I, we're like a poison frog, and they eat us. And they teach us a lesson and we do some jail, that's fine. But they get a little bit of poison in them because they instill distrust amongst the populace. It gets to a point where once nobody trusts them at all, then it's over, right? Nobody's gonna sit there and go, oh, we'll go to court, or I'll wait for court. Once everyone knows it's a scam, then it's done. So it's kind of like, how do you beat the matrix? How do you defeat the matrix? Well, I'm sitting here running my mouth. They put me in jail for it. I'm now currently on bail and have been told not to run my mouth. And I continue to run my mouth and they'll probably put me in jail. Why don't you get a lawyer? You ever hear that one? It's like, oh, I never thought of trying a lawyer. Oh, a lawyer. Oh, okay, I'll get a lawyer and the law. Oh, fine. I'll go home. It's no problem. It's gone now. It's not how it works. It's not how it works. And once people realize that's not how it works en masse, then we're going to have to come into a new system, which I'm hoping we do, because the amount of dishonesty that we're operating under now is truly scary. And God's truth is light and sunlight is a disinfectant. But it's actually kind of scary. I think this is one of the reasons why, as well, men are cowards. It's scary to wake up and realize that every single thing you're supposed to believe in is a scam. The educational system's a scam. The financial system's a scam. The judicial system's a scam. The medical system's a scam. All the wars we went to are scams. And when you start to realize, oh, this is all a lie, well, then you need bravery, right? So it's easier just to be an ostrich and stick your head in the sand. And then you're going to accept the slave programming because it makes you feel better. And that's just cowardice. If you're a powerful person, you go through life and you've always been treated with a degree of respect and you have a degree of respect back. But if you're the kind of person who's never been respected and you get some power, you're evil. You're evil. You literally become a psychopath. You're evil. You cannot trust weak people with power, absolutely. And that's what's so scary, because I guess in the hierarchies of old, up until very modern times, it would be extremely difficult for a weak person to obtain power.
No.
But now we have these hierarchies where everything's so messed up and turned on its head, where the only people in power are weak. And also when a weak man can be... See, anyone who does not understand that they're attacking Trump because he's a good guy has a mental deficiency. It's very simple. You don't have to agree with all of his policies. There's some things he says I don't personally agree with. Fine, who cares? Of course, you don't have to agree with everything. The point is they're attacking him because he's on the good team. Because the reason they like weak people in power is because weak people can be intimidated and scared, which is why they want them to be in power. So when they go to these backdoor meetings, people walking into rooms and saying things, they comply with the true masters and they work for the person they're supposed to work for, which is to globalize finance and not their contingency. Not their constituency. That's what they want. So having weak leaders is dangerous because weak people do the most evil. because they're too scared to stand
100%.
up. They're too scared to stand up and fight against evil. It's really interesting that the world is so brutally simple. And truthfully, a lot of it comes down to the capability, or at least the propensity, or at least a lack of fear of violence. I was having a conversation with a girl, and she was saying that, oh, men like wars, men go to wars. I said, oh yeah, it's all men's fault, men go to wars. Okay. You don't understand the world very much. But the world is war. Everything is war. And the reason you get to drive around in your little Mercedes and live in a peaceful society is because there's an underpinning of violence everywhere. Everyone understands that if they do certain things, eventually will end up in a violent scenario. If you speed on the highway and they give you a ticket and you don't pay the ticket and they add more money and you don't pay it and they tell you to go to court and you don't go, and then they come and say, come to go to court, and you say no, they'll come to arrest you and you say, I don't want to be arrested. And then eventually violence. We have all this paperwork on top and we have all this nice facade, but when it gets down to it, it ends up in violence. It doesn't matter if it's the legal system or your life. I'm sure you try and talk to somebody and I don't want to get in trouble. Yeah, it all ends up in violence. This is the underpinning. And when you have men who are afraid of violence, then they're always going to have the opinion they're told to have. They'll say 2 + 2 is 5. And if you say it's 4, we're going to fight. If you're scared of a fight, well, then 2 + 2 is 5. And a fight doesn't mean win.
It means fight.
Fight means fight.
Right.
I can't win when the police raid my house. I mean, I could try and win and get in a shootout and die if that would be beneficial to me in any way. But I'm not scared of getting my ass kicked. Maybe that's the difference. Come, put me in jail then. And if you have enough people who aren't scared of even just losing a fight, you can win the fight. But we have so many people who are scared of fighting at all. The number of people who were saying COVID, yeah, I know it's a scam, but why is there a but? You know that's it. You know it's a scam. That's the beginning and end to me. And I was perhaps, now I think back, I was perhaps too risky during that period because I was nuts from day one before we even knew it was a scam. I was ready. If it was real, I'd be dead. I'd be the first guy to have died. Number one, I got on a plane here in an empty airport on an empty plane, the last plane out of Romania, and flew to Sweden, which was wide open. They never closed nothing. And I'm running around Swedish nightclubs with champagne like an idiot. So if it was real, I'd be dead on the ground. I'd be the first dead guy. Luckily, it turned out to be a scam, so I looked like a genius. So perhaps I was too brave. Perhaps I should have waited a while. But for 3 years, they got away with that because a bunch of people were like, yeah, but I don't want to lose my job, or I don't want to get in trouble, or what if the police knock on my door, or what if? Let them show their hypocrisy. If enough of you stand up and make them, they can't arrest everybody. They can't do it to everybody. There has to come a point in society where you sit and say, we know this is garbage. And this is what's actually most scary about America now, because I think America this year is going to be telling it's going to go down in history as a pivotal point in the empire of America, because empires rise and empires fall. It's kind of interesting because I study the rise and fall of empires, and no empire lasts forever. And before the American Empire was the British Empire, and before that was the Dutch Empire, and they all kind of end the same way.
Yeah.
The Roman Empire is one that everyone studied and understands. And you look at the fall of the Roman Empire, and it's not that complicated. The population became decadent. The men didn't want to fight anymore. When the barbarians would come, they'd say, we don't want to fight you. We'll let you in. You can be Roman too. Everyone got addicted to this idea of just getting slaves, whether sexual slaves or slaves they could sit around and do nothing. So they just let the barbarians in and hired them as slaves, cheap workers. They inflated the currency. And eventually it just all collapses on itself. It can't last for long.
Sounding familiar, right?
It sounds pretty familiar.
Yes.
And this is the thing that people don't understand when they look at, if I had to be optimistic, let me try and be optimistic for once in my life.
So are you a pessimistic guy?
I don't think I'm a pessimistic person, but I am a realist. And if you're realistic, I'm a realist, I had a tweet that I put up a little while ago, and I said, if I walked into a room and someone gave me $1 million, I wouldn't smile or get happy or laugh. I'd wonder if I can get to the car park alive. That's just my brain. I'd be like, $1 million, thank you. Why? Oh, we really like you, Andrew. Okay, I like you too. Maybe I'm a pessimist. Even $1 million will make me worry. I don't know. But if I want to be optimistic, I think if you want to try and explain the matrix or why these things are happening to the layperson. I don't think they understand that if you get enough money and enough capital, you're no longer tied geographically to anywhere. You can go anywhere. I'm in Romania, I'm not Romanian, and I can live on any country in the world. I can go to Philippines or Japan tomorrow. I can pay a lawyer to give me my residency, and I can buy a nice big house, and I can live there. So you don't have the same vested interest in a local area, right? So if you have a decision to make, which will allow you to make forever profit, but it may detriment a certain area it allows you to make 5% more profit, but it'll increase the crime rate in a certain town by 0.6% because people are coming in who knows who they are. You may not be evil, but you're kind of just like, no, I get to make more money and I don't live in that town anyway. And if I don't do it, my competitor's going to do it. And we're trying to compete with China and we need the cheap workers and, okay. And there's a lot of that going on as well. People just a bunch of small decisions compounding on top of each other. And before you know it, you have towns or states or districts or areas that are completely wrecked by people making decisions to benefit themselves, to make money, and they just simply move and leave. If you don't have geographical freedom in the world today, and to have geographical freedom, you need to have financial freedom. You're in trouble because you're living in an area that you don't have any control or influence over, and there's a whole bunch of people trying to extract as much money as possible from that area. They don't consider your point of view. They don't consider your life. It doesn't matter to them. How can I make as much money as possible? If Ford can make a bunch of money building its cars in China, it will do exactly that, and Detroit will suffer. They don't care. You're stuck in Detroit. That's your problem. Right. So you need to have geographical freedom, and you need to have financial freedom. And I tell these things, and people say to me, but not everyone can do that. Correct. That's what's even harder about the world. Not everybody can pull it off. It becomes even more difficult. And this is the situation we're in. And then the answer, of course, is politics, to elect somebody who cares about you. And we've been down the path of where that leads.
Find somebody.
Yeah, we've been down the path of where that leads. So